Okay, we are with the creative team of Hidden, the Katie Preston story. Daniel is the co-director and writer, and Tom White is the historian of this film. I have to say, first off, this is a film about the Hungarian Katie Preston in the Holocaust in the 1940s. My father-in-law, so my wife's father, is from Hungary, is Jewish, and his parents are both Holocaust survivors, and they left during the 50s when there was that insurrection happening in the 50s. So I'm very much educated before I married my wife into the history of Hungary. So it's interesting that this film came on my lap that I'm talking to you guys now. So I have a personal, emotional like journey with this story as well. So thank you for guys for coming in.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So tell me about Daniel. Tell me about the seed of this idea. When did you kind of start building this story and wanting to make a story about Katie Preston?
It's my mother's story, so
Oh, there you go. Okay.
that's motivation enough. But it's interesting because I've made other films, but because I was so familiar with our family story, it didn't seem as odd to me. It didn't, and so I came to it a bit late, but it's an astonishing story. It's not just a Holocaust story, it's
Sure.
also before, during, and after, and it's also a family drama. You know, the relationship between daughters and mothers can be very, very troubling.
Yeah.
But under the pressure cooker of the Holocaust and the communist takeover, the relationship between the mother and daughter was explosive. So I wanted to also explore that as well as the history and as well as the personal story.
I don't want to simplify it, but there's some PTSD obvious like that occurs after going through that this journey that the mother and the daughter went through, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yet, so when did Tom come in the picture?
Well, why don't you answer that, Tom?
I've worked with Katie as a survivor for a number of years, and I just so happened to be visiting her. I think, Daniel, when you were there, and had mentioned the idea of a film, and I think it just started right there at that moment. But Katie and I have been working for a very long time in schools in New England, and I just try to help her tell her story.
So you're Tom, you're in based in New England, and Daniel, are you in on Canada?
I'm in Canada, yes.
Okay. Your mom's in the United States though?
In New Hampshire, yes.
Okay. So it's an interesting, obviously, like lots of interesting moments of obviously Jews in the last couple of years. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. So you're doing some education in the schools. Tom, that's correct, right?
Right. And, we look at anti-Semitism under the guise of when one hate rises, they all do. And that as we try to define anti-Semitism and make it personal, the goal really is to say anti-Semitism isn't just about Jews, it's about the motivation of the perpetrator. And that's what this film explores a little bit as well.
It also shows how a society can descend into authoritarianism, and in this case, vicious anti-Semitism and Nazism by degrees. It doesn't all happen at once. It's a slow descent, and suddenly it accelerates.
Yeah, 100%. Well, as we see in today's world, right? So
Well,
it's
and
very,
speaking of, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
speaking of
go ahead.
today's world, the film has a contemporary flair as well, or connection, where you're looking at Viktor Orban's Hungary, and how many in our society see that as something to espouse or to aspire to, I suppose. Dan, you want to share that little story about the archive?
Yes, for instance, I couldn't. You people think I shot it all in Hungary. I didn't. I shot a little piece in Hungary, but I wasn't. I couldn't have used Hungarian actors in Hungary because there's a law against what they call besmirchment of the great Hungarian nation. So the regime in Hungary, and I call it the regime because it's an authoritarian regime, are busy trying to rewrite history. Instead of Hungary being an ally of Germany, Hungary is now, as it's rewritten, a victim of Nazism and not a fellow perpetrator. And so, for instance, the 3 weeks where the Hungarian fascists rounded up Jews in Budapest and slaughtered them by the Danube River publicly, every newspaper for those 3 weeks have been taken out of all the archives in Budapest. So luckily, I had a person on the inside, and I managed to photograph some documents. And I almost got caught. I would have had a prison sentence if I did. And now all those documents are now with the Holocaust Museum.
Oh wow. So my
I
wife went
had to run.
yeah. I was gonna say my wife went to the jump piggyback what you're saying. My wife went to Hungary and they had a tour and there was all these the Jewish cemeteries and they were destroyed all the Jewish cemeteries from that time and they were trying to find the archives of their relatives and it was very difficult with they hired a historian for that as well. So obviously that's something that occurred and perhaps but I want to go back to the is that actually a law? Besmirchment. That's just
Yeah,
an interesting word.
this,
Is that like in the law?
yes, the law against the besmirchment of the great Hungarian nation. Meaning that if you, for instance, I wanted to work with a very famous film school in Hungary. And so I contacted them, they didn't get back to me, they weren't interested. And I found out when I was in Hungary that 3 weeks before I contacted them, every member of staff of that famous film school had been fired and repopulated with party-approved morons. And now that film school produces, I don't know, documentaries about peasants holding hands and dancing and making lovely.
Okay. So we've come full circle then, basically. And by the way, Jody is has appeared with us. Hi, Jody.
Hello.
Yeah,
Sorry I was late.
no
I'm on
problem.
the road, so I just had to pull over and get my laptop out for it to work.
Gotcha. We saw you jump in, but then you jumped out, so we didn't know if you were able to come back. So Jody, when did you? So Dane, that's Daniel's mother. When did you come aboard the project?
So at the very beginning, actually, Daniel had come to me with the project back in 2019. And then we went down to New Hampshire to meet Kati, his mom, together. Yeah.
Oh wow! And when did you what was your feelings of when you first met her?
Well, I really wasn't sure, the extent to which we were going to create what we were going to create. We started off with the intention to just do a series of interviews with her. And I think after having met her and listened to her story, I think that's where things really took off because I could better visualize what it was that Daniel had in mind when we started saying docudrama and we started sketching out the bits that we wanted to film and then also the people he had in mind to interview like Tom. So it really wasn't until I heard her story from her that I could get a sense as to how big or how small it was going to be.
Gotcha. Because it's pretty, from a structural storytelling standpoint, there's a lot going on. There's her story, and then you're documenting the invasion of Germany, like you're going through the stages while she's being interviewed. You have like you said, docudrama, you have recreation created scenes that occur, plus you have the stock footage from that time as well. So it's a very busy film that kind of like has one streamline that you're putting it together. Is that what you guys conceived in the film? Like, when did you know that this was going to be like a feature film and this is how you're going to structure the story?
Well,
Well, I think,
you go.
sorry, I was just going to say, I think with, telling somebody's story and then trying to find all of the parts that complement that, there's a tendency to have a whole bunch more stories come alive.
Yeah.
Like you said, the historical components, I mean, you could go on and on and on about what happened in Hungary. And then also with our interviewees, I mean, there were some fabulous stories there that were connected and somewhat related, but not Kati's story. So in the beginning, we ended up with a 2 hour version, probably even longer than that, that we just had to cut back. And that's really where we found ourselves picking and choosing what was really vital to serve Kati's story. Because Daniel also had his own story too when he went to Hungary, just how difficult a process that was to see how everything was shoved under the rug on him. And it became such an emotional journey. And again, we had to pick and choose what it was that we were trying to, really emphasize in Kati's story and her journey through the war.
Gotcha. And then the the interview with, obviously the interview with Katie is very important to the film. She's a streamline. How long did you spend with her? A few days? Like, I'm curious about that
Well,
process, interviewing her.
3 different sessions. We went back down again, and then things that were missing, we went back down again, and things that were not shot the way we want them to be shot, we went down again. So yeah, it's an evolving process. It's not also, when we went back several times, then she remembered other things. It's interesting. Interviewing people is it's not so scientific. It's people open up at different stages, at different rates. So yeah, so it was it evolved.
Yeah, because one would assume that she's very emotional talking about these things, right? So
Well, she's very good at talking. I mean, we were very lucky because most people are not as eloquent,
yeah,
or as, and that's the other thing. There's great humor in it. I mean, that's people think, oh, well, film about the Holocaust, there's great humor. What are you doing? But life can be funny, even in the worst moments. There's moments
yeah,
that are absurd and ridiculous.
yeah. And she's definitely a character. She seems to be. How old is she now?
86.
Yeah, she seems to be still like being vibrant, and like it's a great story, right? Like, just does she see the film? What does she think about the film?
She loves it, of course. Well, she loves it. I mean, one of the interesting battles well, not battles, but I wanted to tell the story of after the war, under communism, and the relationship between her and her mother. I don't want to give it away.
Mhm.
And at first, my mother didn't want to do that, but I persuaded her. And then she saw the film. She said, "You were absolutely right," because these events affect people, sometimes not in a good way, sometimes, especially with children, when they go through things, they're not always logical. Their emotions are completely illogical. And so even though, later on her mother and herself made up, and my grandmother lived with us and died in our house, so my mother looked after her. But at the time, she blamed her for my grandfather's death.
Mhm.
And I thought it was very important, actually. Also important that the idea of brainwashing, that after she could go all of that, she was brainwashed herself.
In terms of, like, in what context?
Well, that she turned in her mother to the authorities because her mother was a was a bourgeois individualism.
After the war and the communist
Gotcha.
takeover.
So just to
Right.
give people history, that so 1940s they get obviously attacked by the Germans, and then 12 years later, the Soviets invade Hungary. So not only so think about our times that we live in here, right? And like how privileged we are in context, right? So in a span of 12 years, they go through the World War, Second World War, then they get invaded by the Soviets 12 years later, and they're like, and then people fled and they're able to flee, like just like my father-in-law, etc. And so it's like, think about the trauma and the what people went through in Hungary that during that time, right?
And people are very resilient. It's weird.
Yeah, they are. But like I said, as I said before, there is that PTSD, there is that trauma that
Oh, yes,
occurred, right?
absolutely.
So
Yeah, I'm
Tom,
very interested in trauma that transcends generations, and when you look at Kati's mother, there's a heroic story in that as well, and that's I'm not going to say it's a side story. I think it's really front and center in the film, and you'll see another. Kind of just this one moment that I always remember for some reason. There's a young girl today in Hungary who's taken it upon herself to sort of be the guardian of the cemetery. And you have to get through it. Daniel will describe it in the film where you go through the backyard to get there. But there's these little glimpses of humanity throughout the film, either contemporarily in Hungary or historically in what happened. And yet, with what's happening in Eastern Europe today, in Ukraine, et cetera, the Soviets or the Russians haven't changed that much. And so these are echoes that aren't that distant for many people.
it's like from my editorial is that they did change a little bit in the 90s, and then they just went back to where they were in before. So they kind of shifted, and then they shifted back, right? So to where they are now. So, but that's another
There's
thing
just
too. You can't. It's hard to change. Like they want to go back to the Cold War, right? The Soviets, because that's that mental capacity. That's what they like, right? So
They like, and like a lot of places in the world, they liked a strong leader. They like to feel a sense of security by having a big father look after them.
or maybe the strong
and
leader likes the strong leader and stays in power because of it,
Yeah,
right? So
well, strong leader.
That's a good point.
yeah.
No, it's interesting because going back to the movie here. I mean, there's a scene she recalls of the Russians coming across the Danube
Yeah.
and being slaughtered, singing arm in arm, and you have these images of the Russian military in Ukraine. Aside from that, I think you're looking at what's important about the film is however we view politics or strong men or authoritarianism, you see the impact on individuals. And I think that's really important for this film where Kati and her mother, and generationally, here's Daniel and his family, affected by these people who have this lust for power and destruction. And yet you have this human resiliency. And I think that's really the theme of the film about humanity pushing back against those forces.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to talk to you guys about the recreation scenes, like like doing the recreation scenes. When did you decide to that you wanted to do those scenes in the film?
Well, we decided quite early on, but not as much as we did. It just grew and grew because we needed to tell the story. And we couldn't film in Hungary, so we had to film in Canada and recreate Hungary in Canada. I did exteriors in Romania and Hungary, but all the interiors, and actually a lot of the exteriors too, were shot in Canada with some Hungarian-speaking actors and other actors who didn't speak Hungarian but had to learn. So that was very challenging as well.
Wow. And then the accent was good. The accent they
Yes, mostly. Some better than others, but the major roles, the accents were great. And in fact, when I was in Hungary and I was showing clips to some Hungarians, they said, "Where did you find these actors?" I said, well, "Why? Well, that's a 1930s accent, peasant
Right.
accent, Pennsylvania. No one speaks like that anymore." And that's because the Canadians, some of them had never been to Hungary, but their parents had come or their grandparents had come, and they had at home, they had spoken old-fashioned, antiquated Hungarian, which was perfect for the period.
yeah.
So it worked out even better.
And as the film's historian, that to me is one of the great aspects of this film, where you have that authenticity.
That's amazing. What an interesting language the Hungarian language is. I was talking to a filmmaker from Hungary, and he was like, he was obviously speaking to me in English, but he's worried about that the language dying because people are starting to speak English even in Hungary now, right? So he's just like, less than 5 million people still speak it. So
Yeah, the Hungarian, it's interesting because some languages stay the same generation after generation. Some some language, like basically like American, if you went back into the 1920s, apart from talking a bit faster, it was very similar. The accents were very similar, maybe a little stronger, but the language had not changed. But in Hungary, the modern Hungarian has changed radically over the last 70 years.
So talk to me about doing those recreation scenes. Like you said, you did casting in Ontario.
Yeah, yes, and Jody built the sets. We all helped, but we Jody will tell you about the warehouse.
Yeah, talk to me about Jody.
Yeah, so we actually looked around in different towns to see if we could find, a historic home or even a hotel, even at a golf course that would kind of come close to Kati's residence because her mom actually had lived in such an opulent place in Aradia. So we looked and looked, and then, some places they would kind of be the fit, but then the price was sky high to be there.
Oh dear.
Yeah, we're losing her a little bit.
Well,
What's that? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
I'm
back.
back. Okay. So we found like the best value was to just build a set, and that the set would be modularized so we could pull out a door, pull out a window, sub in something else, repaint it, and just make it every room in the house eventually. And that's what we did. The other really big constraint, which you don't really think about until you're starting to schedule stuff, is we had a 5-year-old to work with, and we couldn't just say, oh, you're going to do this for 20 days in a row.
Yeah.
It was just way too much for such a young person. And so we thought, well, this is good because we'll just plan to shoot on weekends. That'll give us time to take the set apart and rebuild it the way we want it, paint it, get it ready. And then she'll come in and do her scenes. So we really had to take all of that into account too.
Yeah. Working with child actors because they only can go for 10 hours, I guess, right?
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you had that.
So that actually played a huge role.
also, the other thing with child actors, you can't work them for 8 hours because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours at the most. If you want to get good performances out of kids, you can't, crack the whip.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, the performances are great. Like in the film, like sometimes you get a little bit worried because it is, listen, you made a period piece movie. You could even take the footage that you used and kind of make a movie out of it, like a different kind of movie, but it's not like this is not easy to do. Let's put it that way. And then you child actor to that and kind of making these scenes real with with the winter time and then the clothing and like this is a huge production.
well, it looks much bigger than it was. There's very few of us involved. Yeah. But we had
of like moving parts, right? Like you got to make sure everything. I think everything you spent is on the screen. Let's put it that way.
Yes. The idea was to put every penny on the screen.
Yeah.
And, which I think we did.
Even the teeth, like the teeth are like you guys recreated the teeth.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's you have to. It's a bit like I used to be a chef, right? And it's the same principle. It's all about the details, and you can't let go of the details because once you let one thing slip, then another, and it's all the tiny little details that you don't notice when you're watching the film, but you would notice if they were off.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, right? Like it's because it's like you miss one ingredient from the recipe, it doesn't work, right?
Or it's sloppy, or the French fries are frozen.
It jumps you out. You jump out of the film. You don't believe it anymore, right?
Exactly.
Well, fantastic. Like I said, there's a lot going on. So tell me about the editing, like putting it all together. That must have been a pretty big process.
Edited. Jody's not only the camera but she also is a fabulous editor. So let's see if she's back on with
No,
us.
she's not back on. I think she unfortunately.
But we reviewed every piece and we edited and then re-edited, and it was a long process. But we also had a wonderful sound man from Hungary, Gabor, who came to Canada to work on the sound, and he was literally working for a month on the sound because the sound is so important. Um, it makes or breaks the film. So we spend money on the sound in the post.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's funny. I have a note. It was a good sound. It was a solid sound design, which is like you need that. Like I said, another aspect of if it's not there, it takes you out of the film. But it's like, and she's doing she's like doing a lot of narration too, right? You grab the interview
Yeah.
and and you're using the music. It's fantastic.
Yes, and the music is mostly, believe it or not, Hungarian music from different Hungarian composers, 19th century composers. And Jody also has a background in music, and so she manipulated the music, redid it, but it's orchestrated it all. So yeah.
Is this the first time that you and Jody worked together?
We worked on another little thing beforehand, but yes, this was a major. We worked on a short together, but this was a major piece that we worked together on.
And Tom, do you work on a lot of films like as a historian?
This is my third film that I've worked on. I started way back when in a film called An American Nurse at War, about a World War I nurse from our local area. Uh, but no, this is on this level. This is the first time I've been able to do this kind of help for a film like this.
So are you proud of the film?
Very much. And what I love about it, and I think Kati always talks about this as well, the film is another iteration of the defeat of Hitler and Nazism. We're resurrecting memories of people lost. We're showing the generations that survived, that carry the burden, but choose to live and survive.
Yeah.
And the film is a testimony to survival, to defeating Hitler. I think of what your mom always says too about when she had children, which was every time I had a child, it was like giving the finger to Hitler. And so you're going to see a little of Kati's spirit, her resistance, which definitely comes from her mother, from Daniel, your grandmother, in my point of view.
That's amazing. And you referenced generational kind of trauma, I guess, right? Which is now
Right.
becoming now they're scientifically or that's being proven, I guess, right? Where
That's right.
we genetically give our trauma to the next generation.
That's correct. It does get transferred down. How it plays out, it's not quite so clear to me, but definitely trauma is passed down through the generations.
Well, you figure our hair color, our eyesights, right, would be passed down. You figure the emotions would be too, I guess, right?
That's right.
Not just the physical.
No, that's right. And Daniel, I was always curious too, as you made the film and the recreations of her home, your mom said was really close to what she remembered, and how difficult it might have been for her to sort of relive that from a distance. I mean, when I've worked with many survivors, I've worked through many different genocides, Rwanda, Cambodia, Bosnia, and the Holocaust. When you tell the story in the language you did not experience it in this case, English, there's a distance that makes it easier to talk about. But then when you get close, like you've done, and brought back some of those memories and images, I just wondered if it was ever difficult for your mom to go back there, or how that trauma transcended in your family.
Well, she was amazed that we could recreate her memories so accurately. But I grew up on those memories, so they were printed on me. And also, I grew up with my grandmother as well. I knew her very, very well. She died when I was in my 30s. So, and she would look after us when my mother was at work. So I had an instinctive idea of and description of every location. But yes, some scenes were a little disturbing for her. Yeah, some scenes were, Yeah, and it wouldn't not so much the scenes that you would imagine. It was eating pancakes in the kitchen. It was dancing with her father.
Happiness. Yeah.
In fact, the disturbing scene were the happy scenes.
Yeah, exactly. That makes so much sense to me. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
My joy when I sit through a showing and you're all are there, she's there, is I like to turn my head and watch her re-experience things, and there's a smile that comes across her face, and other emotions as well. But having her present at a showing is really quite a gift.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I really appreciate your time. Fantastic film. Thank you for your honor. I hope it does well. I hope it gets out there historically from the festival circuit. And thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and feelings on the film.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys.